Everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, adoption of the agenda. It is recommended that the agenda of the May 28, 2024 special meeting of the Board of School Trustees be approved as presented. May I get a motion?
A motion.
Motion by George. May I get a second?
I'll second George's motion.
Second by Matt. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Same. Motion carries 4-0. There's no statements from the public. We'll move on to the consent items. Accept the resignations of the following. Approve to post the positions and grant permission to hire, pages 4 and 5 of our packet. First one, Olivia Sheldon, elementary teacher at Rockport Elementary, effective May 17th, 2024. Second, Dudley Mitchell, family and consumer science teacher at South Spencer Middle School and it says South Spencer Middle School and South Spencer. Okay.
Yep.
And high school. Effective June 30th, 2024. May I get a motion?
A motion.
Motion by George. May I get a second?
I'll second.
Second by Tyler. Is there any discussion?
I will say that I deal with about 25 middle school students, and they have all heard that Mr. Mitchell is retiring, and they are upset by it. So that's a sign of a good teacher and actively engaged in his students' learning. So he's going to be missed.
I agree, Matt. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same. Motion carries 4-0. Consideration of the administrative recommendations. Mr. Schneider.
Thank you. The selection committee of Mrs. Lori Herman, Mr. Steve Schroman, Mr. Jeff Daming, Mrs. Tara Compton, and Brad Schneider screened 9 applicants and selected 5 candidates to interview for the position of high school athletic director. The selection committee is pleased to recommend Mr. Trent Martin as the athletic director at South Spencer High School and South Spencer Middle School for the 2024-2025 school year. Mr. Martin will be a great addition to South Spencer High School and Middle School and will continue moving our athletic programs forward. The selection committee recommends Mr. Trent Martin for the position of athletic director at South Spencer High School and South Spencer Middle School, beginning with the 2024-2025 school year as presented.
Okay, may I get a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Motion by Tyler. May I get a second?
I'll second.
Second by George. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I have some discussion. I don't think anywhere in our board packet was anything mentioned regarding salary and requirements regarding salary and ECA schedule and any of that. So if any of my other 3 board members could tell me what that salary is, and if you can't, then I'll refer to Mr. Schneider. But you guys just voted on hiring somebody or made motion to hire somebody. I have no idea what the salary expectation is. That's the first one. I've got others. First of all, I want to say that I think the candidate is great. He's great on paper and professionally. I've got 2 family members that teach in EVSC, and one of them spoke very highly of him. The other one didn't know him, but it's a big corporation, so I get that. I think he'll do a great job. He's professional and passionate, and I've known the family all my life. So I think he's a good candidate. The second part of that is not so positive, and I think and what I mean by that is, I think we've done an injustice as a corporation in the process of selecting the candidate. What I mean by that is, there's a lot of things here in regards to the hiring committee that I struggle with. And I'll start with the first one. On the application and resume of the recommended, he has listed his number 1 reference is our high school principal, who was on the hiring committee. who the only other people that are on the hiring committee are her employees. So if I'm on a hiring committee and I look and I see that her name shows up on the candidate's application in his resume, it looks a little bit like there's a little bit of a finger on the scale for that individual. And that doesn't fall on the candidate, and that doesn't fall on the principal. That falls on the corporation and the superintendent for appointing someone onto that hiring committee that's listed on the application and on the resume. Secondly, I have had many people within the community bring up that Mr. Schneider has a family member who works for the Martin family. And even though it's a sibling, and Mr. Schneider says that his wife's never met the applicant, it's one of those situations where that looks a little fishy as well, the way it stands. And then, you know, from a standpoint that this is the superintendent's wife, and he's on the hiring committee as well. So it just looks a little fishy from that perspective. I asked if the hiring committee was unanimous, and the answer was yes. All the people on the hiring committee were unanimous, and then one sentence later it says I'll read it to you. So we discussed our top 3 candidates, and ultimately the committees all agreed to support the individual, which gives a little bit of hesitation as to, is it consensus or is it outstanding, that's the way they fall? And I'm not picking one side or another, I'm just explaining what, as a board member, I received. And then the last thing on this that I want to talk about is Mr. Schneider had sent the board in your packet a letter of recommendation for the candidate that indicates that he spent 5 years as the assistant athletic director for our corporation. Mr. Schneider, do we have a position on the ECA for a assistant athletic director?
We do not, but that was a middle school activities director position, and it basically performs duties similar to what an assistant would do. Supervise games, take care of the gate, the money box, those types of items. So that speaks to candidates' experience around athletic events.
So, like I said, I don't have a problem with the candidate. I think the candidate will be a fantastic candidate in that position. I do have a problem with the hiring committee and methodologies of how we got to where we are. And then lastly with this, it's unfortunate that we have another really good candidate that was interviewed as well. A person with 3 children within our corporation, a person invested here, a person that coaches here, volunteers here, and spends a lot of time in our community. And he's been overlooked for this position twice, came in second both times. It's unfortunate. I think this board and corporation need to be forward thinking and look for a place to place good talent when it's right here within our corporation and our own community. And with that, I'll leave the rest to the board.
Well, first of all, the salary, can you share that, Mr. Schneider?
Yes, the salary is computed on our contractual agreement, which the board does approve. So Mr. Martin's years of experience with his master's degree, plus the ECA stipend for the athletic director, will result in the total salary, which top of my head is right at $71,000, a little over that amount.
Okay.
All right.
And-
Secondly,
Sorry, you
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead.
I was just
No,
gonna go down the
you
list
go ahead.
of concerns. Secondly, Mrs. Herman is the high school principal. Why would you not have your high school principal on the committee to hire your athletic director when those 2 people are gonna work hand in hand?
I think I agree with you there from that standpoint, but from the other standpoint, that one of the applicants has listed her twice as the reference, kind of puts a little bit of a thumb on the scale, so to speak, in regard, when you have, 90 other potential teachers or people within the building that could have served, to come to the same conclusion that this committee came to.
Again, you know, Mrs. Herman is someone that's been in administration for numerous years, is well respected. So I assume she probably has her name's on a lot of resumes.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
think she's gonna be great at it.
Okay. As far as me being on the selection committee, by law, the superintendent is required to make a recommendation
To the board.
to the board,
Right.
absolutely.
Not necessarily the hiring committee, because you're not on most
Oh,
of them.
but that is my responsibility, Mr. Bunner, and I take that seriously. So if it's an important position as a principal or an athletic director, yes, I'm gonna be part of that process. And I'm sorry you see an issue with that. But, so that takes care of that one. And then, as far as my wife is concerned, we did talk to Lisa Tanzel at ISBA and our local attorney, Mr. Foster. There is absolutely nothing illegal or unethical about that.
Did you convey that to the board, what the results were from those two individuals?
I think Mr. Foster
He sent an email.
sent an email to all the board.
Yep.
It was like right before the board meeting, I think it was
4:51.
like 5 o'clock, something like that.
Okay, I'll read it again, thank you.
Yep. All right. So,
I wanna add is, I don't have any concern regarding that because of, number one, all 5 of the committee members, they are known, not only the superintendent, but Ms. Herman was present, Mr. Sharoman, the assistant principal, Mr. Daming, the football coach, Ms. Compton, she has been an employee here for many years. She was the softball coach for many years, so I trust their opinion, I trust their recommendation. I'm not saying that the other candidates are not qualified by any means, but I trust their opinion and I trust their recommendation, and I will support that.
and I will tell you, we had, and I think you can talk to any member of the selection committee, we had multiple candidates that were good candidates, qualified candidates. Unfortunately, we have one position, so we have to pick the candidate that we feel is gonna be the best fit, do the best job, and take our athletic program in South Spencer High School, middle school, our corporation forward. So that was our task, that is our recommendation.
Matt, to make it clear, you're not attacking Trent.
No, not at all. I think he's a phenomenal candidate. I think it was just the fact, and I know I'm not supposed to address the public, Tim, but you're in here and I respect you and I respect your family. With Trent in the room, I think you all are phenomenal people. The problem that I have is we had the opportunity to make this a absolutely slam dunk, smooth opportunity to hire someone, and we've made poor leadership decisions to taint the water, dirty the water in this situation, put a thumb on the scale, because there are people who were on the committee that affect the other people's opinion. If you don't think that a teacher has concerns about openly speaking against a candidate or not, I think that Trent still had a really good chance of being the candidate anyway, and I will support that candidate. The problem is this was done very, very poorly on paper. Yeah, it has nothing to do with Trent or the family. And I hope that came across that way.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same. Motion carries 4-0. Number 2, Mr. Schneider.
Thank you. The interview team of Mr. Jim Bush, Mrs. Missy Roth, and Brad Schneider are pleased to recommend Mrs. Allison Brown for the position of high school treasurer. Mrs. Brown is currently employed as a health aide at Rockport Elementary and is familiar with corporation policies and procedures. She will be a positive addition to the high school staff. I recommend Mrs. Allison Brown for the position of treasurer at South Spencer High School, effective May 29th, 2024, as presented.
Okay, may I get a motion?
Almost.
Motion by George. May I get a second?
I'll second.
Second by Tyler. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same. Motion carries 4-0. Do we have any statements or concerns of the board?
Welcome aboard. Happy to have you
Yes.
back. Bring your kiddos over.
Excited to be here.
Family. Appreciate it. Got send my big shoes to fill. I don't know if he's long here long enough, but you'll do great.
He's doing
Appreciate
a great
it.
job.
Josh, thank you for everything you've done. Appreciate it.
I agree with you, Tyler. I do have a couple of other concerns that I'd like brought up. Back in February, we voted to accept the grant for the distribution of, I think it was like 10 or 12 AEDs throughout the corporation. We just went through field day, award day, promotions day, graduation. Have these 10 units been positioned throughout the corporation over 95 days ago, with over 2,000 people coming through our buildings? Because they're still sitting in the principal's office here. Corporation hasn't done anything with it.
Yeah.
Can you see that those get distributed properly? Next one is trauma-induced care. Over 4.5 months ago, I asked the superintendent to update the board on trauma-induced care, where we have an $80,000 grant, and that $80,000 was to be used for trauma-induced care for our students. With all these things associated with school shooting, suicide, and other things affected in our corporation, we've yet to been updated on what we've done with that. I know that we had the teachers come in and listen to someone from, I think it was Seattle, from the one teacher that I spoke to, and that's all they've heard of whatsoever. Don't know if anybody is certified or is in a director in each building that is looking over trauma-induced care, and I would like to see that for our next public board meeting. Next item on the agenda is we had an administrator where he or she had disciplinary action taken, and I was told by the superintendent that by the end of this school year that they will have completed their sensitivity and harassment training. Has that been done?
We're working on it. It has not been completed as of today.
Can you tell me the method in which the training is gonna take place? Is that gonna be in person? Is he or she going off-site, or are they doing something online?
It will be virtual, yes.
Okay, and then the last one I have, and this one is kind of personal to me. We just went through a high school graduation, and for the first time since me attending a graduation or being involved in a graduation, that we had no benediction or prayer during the graduation. And I want to voice my concern that that's something that we can't mandate on anyone, but I know that when I was the president of this board under the two superintendents that I work with, I got an agenda of what that was going to look like prior to the graduation, and I was able to give input and be able to give the board information regarding a benediction from the prayer led by a student, if a student so wanted, and it was not offered nor on there. I know that the valedictorian and several of the people are involved in Bible clubs, Sunday schools, and things of that nature, and there would be no reason why he or she wouldn't be willing to do that, but it wasn't offered, and for that I'm personally upset. That's all I have. Thank you.